let's talk about the idea of crisis first. So I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that psychologists today have said that we may go through up to 8 crises in our life journey. What kind of crisis? Okay, we tend to think the most famous one is the midlife crisis. It's when you turn about 40 and you start to ask the question, I didn't think life was supposed to feel like this. Maybe I did it wrong. And so some people having a midlife crisis go back to do things that they're just not the age for. They try to be 18 again and redo their life. And so that's one thing that happens, midlife crisis. But good news for those of you who are 25, you don't have to wait till you're 40 to have a crisis. They have one built for you. It's called quarter life crisis. How many of you heard of that before? Quarter life is when you ask, have I already gotten it wrong? Have I gotten the wrong degree? Am I in the wrong job? Do I want to have any kids? Am I going to be a good parent? All kinds of questions in the quarter life era. And then there is sort of the late in life crisis, when you get ready to retire, but you're healthy enough, and you start to say, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I think of Carl Hendrickson in the movie Up, and he still has a dream and healthy enough to do something. Late in life crisis. So good news is, let me just tell you, no matter where you are in your life's journey, there is a crisis awaiting you. How about that? Yes. In fact, you don't have to wait to enjoy yours now. In fact, maybe you should just tell the neighbor that you're sitting with, say, see, that's what it is with you. You're in a crisis. Just tell him right now. I knew there was something, right? That's my problem too, right? We're all in some kind of a journey in life. Now, we're going to talk in a minute something called post-life crisis. But let me take you to one other moment, and that's what we'll call end-of-life crisis. Now, not everybody has the opportunity to have this because sometimes death comes surprisingly. But when you know it's going to happen, there's a lot of questions that come with that too. And I remember when I was 19 years old, one of the first significant people in my life to pass was my grandpa Campanella. And so Grandpa Campanella died. He was diagnosed with cancer, and I had some minutes with him ahead of that moment when he passed. So let me just paint a picture for you. My grandpa, an Italian immigrant, Erie, Pennsylvania, 5'4", not very verbal. He was a very serious, very loving man, but not very verbal at all. And when he talked, it tended to be in a whisper, right? He wasn't the Godfather, but he talked like him a little bit, okay? So he would start his prayer like this. By the time he was done, he had whispered. Okay, so I was sitting with Grandpa Campanella. What had happened is they diagnosed him with cancer. He had a tumor pressing on his spine. They told him if he didn't have it removed, that he would probably be paralyzed. So he had the tumor removed. And to stabilize his spine, they put him in a halo. Have you seen one of those where they bolt your head in and you've got this apparatus on you so that you can't turn your neck? And so here he is laying in the bed. Now they've told him he's only got a few days to live. And I have a chance to sit next to him. And the first thing he said to me, one-on-one, he said, Jeff, I know you're going into the ministry. And he said, I want you to know that you need to, in ministry, remember those who are suffering. Because he said, I never understood how people go through things until the last few months. And now that I've suffered through this, I wish I could go back and be more sensitive to the people who are suffering in the world. And after we talked about that for a little bit, I said, but Grandpa, you're going to go to heaven. I mean, you're excited about that, right? You've followed Jesus your whole life. Are you excited to go to heaven? And he said this, I'll never forget this statement. He said, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to have to die to get there. Isn't that the truth? Because death is a mystery. We don't know what's going to happen, what will be like, what will happen after. Is it what they said it would be? How can anybody know? This is the post-life crisis. One day we're going to open our eyes on the other side and we're going to find out what's there. And that's what this series is about. We want to talk about some issues regarding what happens after we die and all the misconceptions that sometimes have come with the idea of heaven and hell and the afterlife. And today we're going to talk about, first of all, the hope of the resurrection. But some of you might be thinking this, Pastor Jeff, you're bumming me out, man. I mean, here we are on Easter Sunday and you're talking about death, your story about your grandpa, and now I'm feeling sad. Like, aren't we supposed to be shouting and celebrate he is risen? Okay, we're going to get there, but I want you to understand that Easter celebration only has meaning in the context of this question. And by the way, it's actually very wise to think about these things. Let me just tell you, Psalm 90, Moses wrote this psalm, verse 12, teach us to number our days, it says, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. When you realize that your life is short and you are mortal and there is an eternity that awaits you, It just helps you live a wiser life. So I'm helping you out today, right? Helping you be a little wiser today. Okay, here's the second verse I'll introduce to you. Ecclesiastes, Solomon writes this, chapter 7, verse 2. It is better to go into the house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. And then it says, and the living should take this to heart. So actually considering the fact that there is death coming makes us wiser, makes us think better about things. And built into the framework of this celebration of Easter, Christianity over hundreds of years has a pattern. Now, I don't come from a tradition personally where we celebrated all of the aspects of Lent. How many of you come from a tradition where you celebrated Lent or still do? Okay, yeah, look at that. Okay, a lot of people did. So I first learned about this when I was in elementary school, and I had some friends of mine that showed up in February on a Wednesday, and they had some stuff on their forehead. And I asked them the question, what's on your forehead? And they said, oh, it's ashes. And I said, why do you have ashes on your forehead in the shape of a cross? And they're like, because it's Ash Wednesday. And I said, oh, great. Well, what's Ash Wednesday? And they said, well, it's the day we go to church to get ashes put on our forehead. And I was like, I totally get that, but why? And they were like, I don't know, because a lot of times we go through religious rituals and we don't know why we do what we do. Isn't it true? I have since come to understand the power of Ash Wednesday. Do you know what this means? When you put ashes on your forehead, you're saying, one day I'm gonna die. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I'm reminded that I'm mortal, and one day I'm gonna die, and I'm going to point myself towards Easter. So Ash Wednesday starts a 40-day journey towards Resurrection Day to say, one day I'm going to die, but I have hope in the fact that even though I'm going to die, Jesus Christ is risen from the dead, and because he lives, I too one day will live. Isn't that an awesome reminder of what the whole thing is about? So the celebration of the resurrection only has meaning in the context of this question of what happens to us when we die. And there is a certainty, a hope that comes with the resurrection that we're celebrating today.